You're not weak. You're just easy to ignore. And that might be worse, because nobody fears what's easy to ignore. Nobody respects what bends on command. And power never gets handed to the harmless. If you're the one who works hard but gets overlooked, if you're reliable, capable, and still invisible, if you feel like people only notice you when they need something, this one's for you. This isn't a power fantasy. This is a psychological shift. In solo leveling, Jinwoo doesn't get louder. He gets quieter. He doesn't ask for space. People move without being told. There's a version of you the world keeps tolerating, and another it can't ignore. The monster you must become to win. Not violent, not cruel, just impossible to dismiss. If being liked actually worked, you'd already be where you want to be. You stayed polite, you didn't rock the boat, you answered fast, you over-explained, you swallowed opinions to keep the peace. And what did that get you? More responsibility, less leverage, zero authority. Being liked feels safe because rejection hurts. So you trade respect for comfort and call it maturity. It's not maturity. It's self-erasure with good manners. Being nice starts sounding a lot like unpaid emotional labor. Psychology backs this up. Research on social dynamics shows that people who avoid conflict are perceived as less influential. Even when they're competent, respect comes from boundaries, not approval. Safety is passive. Respect is earned through friction. You don't get authority by being easy. You get it by being consistent. Early Jinwoo is nice. He apologizes for being weak, laughs off disrespect, thanks people for tolerating him. The team doesn't hate him, they just don't count him. He's present, but irrelevant. That's the coworker who says yes to everything. The friend who's always available. The person who texts back instantly and wonders why they're never prioritized. They're liked, they're not listened to. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Harmless people aren't trusted with power. They're managed. The world doesn't reward kindness without backbone. It exploits it, and deep down, you already know this. Stop explaining yourself when no explanation is required. Allow small tension. You don't need to be mean. You need to stop being convenient. Being harmless doesn't make you good. It makes you predictable. Most people don't choose to be harmless. They drift there, one compromise at a time, one "it's not worth it" at a time, one swallowed opinion after another. Eventually, you wake up realizing something terrifying. You don't know where you end and other people begin. You exist on approval. Psychologically, this is called a permission-based identity. Your sense of self depends on response. When the reaction disappears, so do you. Studies on self-concept clarity show that people with low internal definition rely heavily on external feedback to regulate confidence and decision-making. Translation: if no one reacts to you, you don't know who you are. So, you chase reactions. You explain yourself even when nobody asked. You overgive to stay relevant. You reply fast so you're not forgotten. You wait to be chosen, invited, approved. You mistake being needed for being valued. And the worst part? You think this makes you a good person. It mostly makes you very convenient. Early Jinwoo does all this. He laughs when they call him weak. He apologizes for slowing the team down. He risks his life so others won't be uncomfortable. He's not respected for it. He's expected to do it. Once you prove you'll sacrifice yourself to belong, people stop protecting you. At work, the reliable one gets buried with tasks and zero authority. In friendships, the always available one becomes background noise. In dating, the accommodating one gets replaced by someone harder to read. Different arenas, same pattern. People don't resent harmless people. They forget them because humans don't orbit what bends. They orbit what has weight, and weight comes from limits. Delay your response. Stop offering emotional discounts. You don't need to disappear. You need to stop leaking yourself everywhere. Powerful people don't do most of what you just heard. No explanations, no chasing reactions, and somehow the room adjusts to them. Dangerous doesn't mean loud, aggressive, dominant. That's insecurity with a megaphone. Real danger is quieter, heavier. Psychologically, this comes down to scarcity and restraint. When someone doesn't overexpose their thoughts or intentions, the brain fills in the gaps, and gaps create gravity. Research on social influence shows that individuals who speak less, but with intention, are perceived as more competent and authoritative, not because they're smarter, because they don't leak certainty. They decide once, they move quietly, they say less, they leave early. They don't rush to be understood. They let people adjust. Post-shift Jinwoo barely talks. He doesn't explain. He doesn't correct assumptions. Others fill the silence with fear and respect. Same man, different presence. The danger wasn't his power. It was his restraint. Think about the person at work who doesn't jump into every discussion. But when they speak, decisions shift. They're not chasing, they're moving. Dangerous people aren't trying to intimidate. They're no longer available for negotiation. Their identity's settled, so others stop testing it. Stop narrating your decisions. Practice silence after you speak. You don't need to dominate the room. You need to stop orbiting it. The line between harmless and dangerous isn't confidence. It isn't power. It isn't courage. It's a rule change. For most of your life, the rule was simple. Check the room first. Check reactions. Check tone. Check approval. Every move passed through that filter. The moment you cross the line is when that rule is removed. Not replaced, removed. The shift is internal. You stop asking whether something will be accepted and start asking whether it's aligned. That's the shift from reaction to decision. Psychologically, this is the transition from approval seeking to self-rule. From I'll act if this feels safe to I'll act if I can live with it. Not arrogance, finality. Once an identity feels final, people stop pushing it. This is why Jinwoo's shift feels unsettling. He doesn't announce anything. He doesn't signal strength. He just stops checking the room. Same face, same voice, different center. People don't sense aggression. They sense closure. Make one decision this week without checking for agreement. Let the discomfort exist. That discomfort is the line. Silence makes people nervous for a reason. Silence removes feedback. Without feedback, people don't know how to behave. Harmless people fill space. Not because they want to talk, but because silence feels like rejection. Your brain treats awkward silence like it just set off a fire alarm. Every time you rush to fix the gap, you give away power. Silence creates uncertainty. Uncertainty forces attention. When you speak less, others project, assume, adjust. Psychologically, this flips the dynamic. The person filling silence seeks stability. The person holding silence controls it. Not because they're trying to, but because they already decided who they are. Not intentionally, structurally. Post-shift Jinwoo waits. Others talk more, speculate more. Nothing threatening happens, but the balance shifts. After you speak, don't rush. Pause before answering. Not to intimidate, to break the reflex. Silence isn't absence, it's restraint. And restraint is where danger starts to form. This is where everything changes. Not how people see you, but how you experience yourself. For most of your life, one question ran in the background. Do they like me? Was that okay? Your nervous system asked it for you. Approval expires. That's why even wins felt unstable. The flip is subtle but permanent. You stop asking, do they like me? You ask, can I sleep at night if I do this? That's the shift from external authority to internal authority. When decisions are internal, they don't wobble. You stop correcting the course. You stay steady. Decisions get made privately, boundaries enforced without speeches. You don't explain your no. You don't chase closure. When you stop outsourcing self-respect, you become consistent, even when others don't like it. Consistency is rare, and that consistency reads as power. That's why people adjust. That's when you become no longer easy to ignore. You were never weak. You were trained to be safe. But safety doesn't build gravity, and it doesn't build power. The shift isn't about being feared. It's about being settled. When your rule becomes, can I sleep at night if I do this? Everything reorganizes. You stop explaining. You stop managing reactions that aren't yours to manage. And yes, some people will pull away. Some will say, you've changed. That loss isn't failure. It's proof you stop negotiating your worth. Because once you can sleep at night with your decisions, you don't need permission during the day. That's what it means to become dangerous. That's the monster.